everybody, it's Kirsten with Talk Travel Eat, and today we're gonna get a little emotional. In the 2 years since I haven't been working, I've had a lot of time to think, and which in turn turns into a lot of time to feel. When I was younger, I always used to wish that the American Revolution never happened. And I would wish this because if it hadn't happened, we'd all have British passports and we'd all be able to work anywhere we wanted in the EU. Now, obviously, my younger thinking was flawed because if the American Revolution never happened, I probably wouldn't be here. I certainly wouldn't have met Mark, and that is just not a scenario I'd like to entertain. But I was always thinking of things, fascinated with other cultures, and one thing that I learned early on was that the U.S. culture is focused on the individual, whereas many cultures around the world are focused on the collective. And growing up, I saw this firsthand with many immigrant families moving into my neighborhoods, and these families, you know, they would pool their money, buy homes, start businesses, but it was all with the collective, all with extended family, and it was just something so natural and something that was developed over many generations in their culture. The U.S. culture is just not like that. I think another thing about U.S. culture that we've learned over the years is that we are taught this idea of desensitization, and we're just taught to desensitize everything because if it doesn't have to do with us individually, it doesn't affect us. And we've seen this throughout time in the U.S. culture, and I can remember the first time that I really felt this was on 9/11. Now, before I go on, don't get me wrong, I love the United States. I feel very fortunate to have been born and raised in the United States. There are just a few things about our culture that I don't agree with. And this whole idea of desensitization and being all for the individual and not the collective, I just don't think it can have a good outcome. Back to 9/11. I turned on the TV and I could not believe what I was seeing. Mark was already gone to work, and so I called him. We talked to each other to make sure, we were okay. And, we had lived in New York City, and after living in Manhattan, we moved to Jersey City, so we used to take the PATH train through the World Trade Center every morning going to work. I just couldn't believe it. I thought, well, let me get ready for work. At least if I went to work, I could be around people and we can try to process this together. So I got myself together and I went to work. I was working in a law firm at the time, and I just remember the attorneys and everyone in the firm trying to make sure that the courts were still open, because the department that I worked in a litigation department. We actually had a trial call that morning, and they were just wanting to make sure that that trial was going to go forward and start that day. And I was like, what is going on? Can't we take a minute to try to process this? Do you realize what has happened? But nobody was really concerned because it was 3,000 miles away and it didn't affect them personally. That was that was a tough day. I know it was a tough day for a lot of people around the world. But again, our culture in the US of desensitization, we're just supposed to go on, business as usual. So tragedy after tragedy over the years, this is how we get through living in US culture. Fast forward almost 20 years and, here comes COVID. And I'll tell you, that one broke me. Working as a nurse, I was also a new nurse manager. I had accepted a management position a few months before COVID arrived. By the time COVID arrived, I already knew the position wasn't for me and had already been making moves to perhaps get back to patient care. But that's a whole nother story. But it was just so difficult because, again, even within the hospital systems, while there was so much uncertainty, so many people dying, there was this underlying tone to push business as usual. Again, I was like, can we take a beat? Can we acknowledge how staff is feeling? I understand we have to continue caring for patients, but in an outpatient clinic that we're in, we need to really acknowledge what people are going through and how much of an effect this is having on people. But, there just wasn't any room for that. And so, that pretty much was the beginning of the end of my nursing career. But again, that's another video, probably for another channel. I know a lot of these feelings are coming up for me because of that horrible, horrible shooting in Texas, where all those children were killed. Again, it is that US desensitization culture that makes me believe nothing is going to change there. Being away from the United States for over a year and just really seeing how a collective culture works here in Portugal, for example, with regard to COVID. Not everybody agrees about everything, but people understand fundamentally that COVID is something that does affect everyone, and so everyone got vaccinated, everyone wore masks, everyone grieved. There was just so much loss associated with COVID, loss of life, loss of livelihood, just an overall sadness that comes along with it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in addition to all of the emotions that you're going to go through with your move abroad, moving away from your family and friends, if you're selling all of your possessions you've collected over the most of your adult life, all of the stress associated with getting your visa, coming to a new country where you don't speak the language, learning how to do simple things like operate your washing machine, going to the grocery store and realizing you don't know what products actually are. You can guess, but you really have to take the time and use a translator to make sure you're getting what you actually want to buy. There are all kinds of stressors and emotions associated with those things, but there's so many underlying emotions with just the differences in culture and really stepping back and looking at your previous culture. For us, it's the US, and just really having the time to really see, think, and feel. So we were in the US for tons of tragedies, but that desensitization is a serious thing, because it really keeps you from feeling the gravity, at least it kept me from feeling the gravity of just the horrific nature of some of these tragedies. I guess it was just something unexpected. I wasn't expected to be so struck by that and to be so sad about it. And I think I'm even just more sad about it that these tragedies continue to happen, and nothing is really gonna change them. I mean, it's just a really sad thought for my home country. So that's pretty much it. I think that's all I have to say about this today, but let me know your thoughts and let me know what you think. If you're thinking about moving abroad, there are going to be a lot of things that catch you by surprise, and I guess this is one of those emotions that caught me by surprise. So I'll appreciate hearing what you think about this video. As always, thank you for watching. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. If you want to get notifications of when I drop a new video, go ahead and hit that bell. Again, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.